Welcome to the Once and Future Authors Podcast. I'm Stephanie, and I'm so delighted to be joined today by author Suvendu Tripathy. He's joining us from way across the globe. We even had to arrange for a good recording time so that we were both awake at the same time. That's how far we're talking. Suvendu is the author of the Crepe Jasmines, and I have to tell you on a personal note, loved every word of it and was hanging on it. So I'm so delighted to be joined here by the author. Thanks for joining me today. How are you today?
I'm good, Stephanie. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thrilled to have you. And yes, we're morning here, we're evening there. We had to figure the whole thing out.
Yes.
Clear across the continent there. And your family and everyone is well there?
Yes. Thank God for this. I mean, everybody is doing fine.
Exactly. Now, you've been locked down for 15 months now?
Yes.
Does that mean you get a lot of writing done?
Yeah, I mean, so I saved almost 3 hours on my, driving to and from office,
3 hours? You used to do that every day?
Yes, I mean, 1.5 hours to and 1.5 hours from office.
Oh my God.
So that is the time I saved during the COVID pandemic.
Wow.
And that enabled me to write my book.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of hours. I hope they never make you go back to the office.
Yeah, I am hoping to, not to go actually.
I bet 3 hours a day
Yes.
is a lot of time to be saving. I hope they keep you remote.
And not that it is too far away. It is only 10 kilometers away from my home.
10 kilometers takes an hour and a half?
Yes, one way.
Why does it take so long?
We have, the infamous Bangalore traffic,
Oh my
no, you cannot predict, whether it will take 1 hour or 45 minutes or 2 hours one way.
Okay,
Sometimes
you can walk that distance in an hour and a half.
So sometimes it so happens that, while, coming back from office, I have even taken 3 hours to reach home.
Oh my gosh. 10 kilometers.
Yes.
Wow. Well, that makes our New York traffic not look so bad.
That is nothing compared to Bangalore.
That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Well, tell us a little bit about how you got your start in writing. What inspired you to start creative writing?
Actually, I have been thinking of writing a book for a very long time. I mean, it is so long that, probably in 2010, I started planning to write the book. Then accordingly, like any new author, I started a very elaborate plan. Then I wrote down everything saying I will be finishing the book in probably next 4 to 5 months. And I promised myself that I will be writing at least 500 words a day. Even I bought a separate computer, to write the book. But that never happened. It kept on, I kept on procrastinating the whole thing. It never happened. So in the meantime, my day-to-day job kept me busy, and one way or the other, I got some excuse to not to write.
That's what happens, is everybody gets an excuse not to write.
Yes. And then, I was thinking, that thinking was, now that I have written my book, I realized that I was so wrong. I thought that probably I will write the way Salman Rushdie writes, or some other very famous writers like Arundhati Roy. I mean, both Arundhati Roy and Salman Rushdie, they have got the Booker Prize, right? So I thought I will be probably emulating their style of writing. And even I tried my best to be able to write like that, but it never happened. I can be only Suvendu Tripathy. I cannot be them, right? But that realization came very late. So then one fine day in April 2020, I realized that if I don't write my book, probably, the story will go to my grave along with me, considering the COVID pandemic,
Oh no.
So because of that, one is that, and then I also looked at if you consider the characters that I have in my book. So the place that I live in Bangalore, I have, many people from the place, which I have considered in this book, the background, background of these people, like, from that part of the country that I belong to, many people come here to either become a software engineer, or to become a plumber or a carpenter or a cook.
Oh, okay. Those are the choices.
So, if anybody is coming to Bangalore, the first choice is to become a software engineer, as if that is the easiest thing to do. So those people who don't get into the software industry, they try to stick here, and some of them, some of those people, they become cooks. So you can even see in my book, there are, people are cooking the Odia delicacies across different parts of the state to make a living. So the place that I live in Bangalore, there are many people from Orissa, the place I come from, who get by just doing cooking, in other people's house. So my characters are all those, small time cooks, the poor people, from small villages. They're just trying to make it big in the large cities. So, in April of 2020, I just said, if I don't write, this story is not going to come out of my system, and it will never be published. And by the way, this is not my first book. The first book is still under process. This is my second book, but published first.
Look at that. I'm glad you said that, because I think that happens to a lot of people, that there's a book and then there's another book and it kind of jumps over it. And, that's good to know that that's normal, that happens. So
Yeah.
these characters and this storyline, were they nagging you in your sleep? Were were they saying, Suvendu, write about us, write about us? What, what happens when you get an idea for a book?
No, actually, though my life, I don't come from similar background, okay? But, as a, writer, or as a potential writer or an aspiring writer, I keep on looking at people's, the way people live, the way they behave, the way they speak, and how they deal with their, life's problems. So when I speak to someone on the road, I try to understand, if somebody is saying a certain sentence, the way he is saying, I not only try to understand what he is saying, I also try to understand why he is saying like that, or why he is saying those particular words. Okay. So that, I'm very observant, the way people speak, even in smaller things, like, if you ask, how are you? People say, okay, I'm surviving the day, or something like that. It gives, it is a very simple answer, but it is also very philosophical. If you try to look at try to understand the philosophy behind that answer. So I have spoken to cooks. I have spoken to people, who work in others' house as housemaids, and they are all over. I mean, from all over the country. Even some of them come from our neighboring country like Bangladesh. Many people from Bangladesh, they cross over the border, come to India, and they not only find a job on the border areas, border states. They even, many of them have even come to Bangalore. Bangalore is like at least 2,000 kilometers away from the border. They crossed from Bangladesh. Okay, so in human civilization, this crossing borders in search of livelihood is a major this thing, right? People go from India to America, India to Canada, from Europe to America, from America to Europe. I mean, this cross-country movement is happening. It has been happening for hundreds of thousands of years.
Yes.
So the livelihood of people is so important for them. Then they will cross 7 seas just to find something for themselves. And people have their own dreams. So when I look at people, I see there is a story behind that person's, the way he speaks, the way she speaks, the way they even walk, or the way even they do their work, or even the language they speak. So all those things, I have observed them for a very long time. I have seen similar characters in my own village while growing up.
Right.
So I said, I can very easily write a love story, set in the metropolis of this country. I mean, there are so many love stories you can write, which is easy to even write. But,
right,
for me, as a writer, my philosophy is, if I am able to speak the story, I mean, tell the story of the, people for whom nobody talks about, that is a, much more greater achievement than, writing a 200-page love story and selling in millions. Okay. Because, the market size for that is, too large in most of the major cities in this country.
Now, you have some very interesting themes in your book having to do with people who are from very different backgrounds getting together, and how that goes down in India. Not necessarily acceptable, is it?
Yes, it is not. Actually, in this book, the main character, Partha, and then the girl, he is in love with. So Partha is a Brahmin. Brahmin as in, in Hindu religion, Brahmin is, the priest in the temple. Okay. So they have to live their life in a certain way. They don't have to eat certain things. I mean, they cannot eat non-vegetarian. They have to live their life in a certain way, and very limited living they have. They cannot eat certain things on a Monday, or they cannot eat something on a Thursday, or even certain month of the year. It is like that. Okay. And that guy, he falls in love with a Muslim girl, and in the place that this whole story starts, there within the Hindu community also, Hindu religion also, if a Brahmin boy marries a non-Brahmin girl, or vice versa, that becomes a huge issue.
Yes.
So here it is not only non-Brahmin, it is, not from the Hindu religion, Muslim religion, right?
Right.
But issue is, the objective of the story, is it is how different people from different religion, background, and culture, they have got integrated into the system, the larger system, to the larger scheme of things of the society. So the grandparents of Asifa, the lady whom Partha marries after eloping from Odisha, they came from Bangladesh, during the partition.
Mm.
But, when people are poor, they have to get by in their life doing anything that they can do. Right? So you can see in that book, in this book, the grandparents of Asifa, they used to, actually grandfather of Asifa, he used to make the statues of different Hindu gods and goddesses. He's a Muslim, and he makes this, and those statues, they get, bought by Hindus for all their different festivals across the, throughout the year. Hindus have so many different festivals. So they buy from that person, they worship that particular, god and goddess. And when you are Hindu and worshipping that god or goddess made by a Muslim, you don't, you don't think that it has been made by a Muslim, right? For you, it is that God, whether it is, whether it is God or goddess, for you, it is just that statue of that God or goddess. You don't think who is behind the creation of that.
Right.
But, the livelihood, it is so strange, that, it's not even strange, it is also in some way very beautiful, that, for the sake of livelihood, people do so many different things, and nobody really cares whether it is for the Hindu or it is for the Muslim, or the religion doesn't come into picture.
I get that.
And when people come from one geography to another, it is in their very nature as human beings to get integrated to the new culture very easily. It is part of the, process of, living as a human being.
Right.
So, as, people try to find differences and the barriers and all those stuff between geographies, religion, and all those stuff. But issue is, human beings naturally are not like that.
Were you hoping with a book that you would shine a light on that people would come to realize that the differences are preconceived and people should be more accepting? Was that part of your plan, or
no, it is, I'm just a, humble writer, I am writing what is there in my mind. I don't want people to even change their, thoughts because I am writing that story. I just want people to read it, and that is just one of the possibilities.
I love that. I have to tell you, so many yes, that was my intent. I'm trying to change society here with this book. No, I'm a humble writer. I just had this story, and hopefully they'll pick up on all of these things that are in there. And I love that the themes of these two people who generally wouldn't be together, falling in love. But also I love the theme that somebody who is actually creating the Hindu gods is not necessarily Hindu.
Yeah.
Very interesting that we don't know where things come from, not even religious objects.
Yes.
Very, very interesting. I didn't, catch that. And that's something very important for people to realize, that you might be biased and say this couple can't be together, but yet in your house you have a god of Ganesh or whatever it might be, and you don't know where that came from. Very interesting.
Yes. You don't know who has made it, right?
Exactly. You don't.
So,
And you don't
and
know
then
who made your food, and you don't know who made the things in your house, and yet you're accepting of all of that, but maybe not in a relationship sort of a way.
yeah.
Very interesting. I like that a lot. And that's very eye-opening for people to realize.
And it is not only, I mean, I have given the title of this book as the Crepe Jasmines. It is because, the Crepe Jasmines, it has a very nuanced fragrance, I mean, so basically the white color flower that flower during mostly, I mean, they flower throughout the year, but mostly, they, in general, they flower better during the monsoon season.
Okay.
I mean, so in the monsoon season, when you go in the morning, early morning, it is drizzling, and you go and pluck one of those flowers, then it has a very nuanced smell. And this, you will be able to realize the smell only if you go near that flower. It is not very much unlike rose. Rose, you can smell the thing, even from 20 meters or even 50 meters, if the air is coming your way from the direction of the flower, rose. But these crepe jasmines, you have to be near to that plant to be able to realize their fragrance. Okay. And it is a metaphor for people, the way villagers live. In cities, people talk, I mean, they are so full of themselves, they only talk about themselves. Okay, they want to market themselves, they want to sell themselves, all their good things, and how they are the best human beings, on earth, like that. But in villages, people are very humble. They don't want to come to you and tell they are so and so. You have to go to them, talk to them, only to realize how good or bad they are. So that is the reason why I gave this title as the Crepe Jasmines. And here, most of the characters, like even the parents of Partha, or even the parents of Asifa, they're also the Crepe Jasmines in their own way.
Mm.
So, like Partha's father, Bansi, he has very limited resources, right? But like the fathers of the world, who have a lot of dreams for their children's future, they do almost everything that is possible under the sun to make that dream happen, right?
Mm.
Otherwise, he did not have to leave his village, go around places cooking to earn that money, right? So, I mean, not that he was very poor. I mean, he was not very poor. If you consider the kind of, cultivation he did, the kind of crop, paddy and other stuff was able to cultivate in his own village, that was enough to run the household, right? Mm-hmm. But, most of the villages across the country in India, not that they don't get to eat, they eat, they celebrate life, they celebrate various festivals and all. But for that, you don't need a lot of money to do it. Almost everything you can have in your own village. But if you have to send your kids to study, you have to send them to the larger cities. And if you have to send them to larger cities, you need cash. Mm. So for this guy's father to be able to send all his kids to college, he had to do all these, cooking jobs across the state, going from place to place. And, so that is, one is, if you have a dream for your kids, then your kids also have to be in alignment with that dream. Otherwise, it will not happen. So it is a complete story of, the family, how the families should work together to realize their larger goal and all these things. So it is not only story of Partha or Rasi.
No, you're absolutely right. And that story, universal themes of parents wanting the best for their children and working hard at it. Themes of what people are like in small places as opposed to in big places. And I love the way you described the title. And a person like me would not realize that to smell the beautiful scent of the crepe jasmines, you're not going to smell it from way off. You have to really get to know that flower.
Yes.
Getting close. And that's the same with many, many people. Many people are not outwardly, you don't see them. You have to get in close. But once you do, and once your readers get in close and get to really meet your characters, they're going to discover so many beautiful things. I love the book and just loved learning about the lives of your characters. And for me, learning more about a country that I'm familiar with on a surface level, but now I feel like I have friends there.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about what's next for you. Are you working on any other projects? Are you still locked down and not commuting, so you have time to write? What's going on?
Yeah, actually, I'm now trying to finish my first book, which will be probably the second published book.
All right, look at that. Okay.
So this story is about someone from the western part of the state that I come from. So the eastern part, that is nearer to the larger cities of the state, where I come from, Odisha. But if you consider the western part, one is in the eastern part, you have rivers and, you have fertile land, so people can do cultivation and get by in their day-to-day life. But if you go to the western side of the state, which is full of dense jungles and, mountains and all those stuff, one is, it is a challenge to even come out of their village because roads don't exist.
Oh.
And then there is this problem of malaria.
Oh.
So many of these people, they at least have malaria once or twice a year. And they don't have access to healthcare.
Mm.
And to go to school, they have to walk at least 7, 8, 9 kilometers through the jungles. And the time, this story is set, is like, around 40 years back, when even today also, if somebody walks in the winter or early summer, through the jungles in early morning, probably one would come across, if one is unlucky, will come across, bear. I don't know whether you are familiar with that. You might have a different size of bears in America, but here in India, they are smaller in size, but they are more or less equally dangerous for human beings. So, I used to study in one of those villages for 4 or 5 years when I was a student in high school. So I have seen at least a couple of my classmates getting attacked by bears, on their way to school. So that is, and then, so if you compare people from the eastern side of the state versus western, in the western side, they are not only poor, they are they have a high probability to get malaria, get attacked by various animals from the jungles, and then they have to eke out their living by selling firewood, because that is one of the most often available work that they can have at any point of the any point of the year. So, you know, all the challenges that one has to face, you know, in living that life. So I am going to cover that, you know, in this story. But you know, in this story also, the main character would like to, you know, in my first book, the main characters, they don't take on the, you know, society, you know, they just live, you know, they try to sidestep all the challenges very peacefully, and just you know, live their life. But this book that I am currently writing, probably the characters will be kind of a little more aggressive.
Okay.
They would be, you know, not taking things lying down.
Right. Okay.
And they will be on your face, basically. So it will be a little different in terms of the characters.
Okay, well, we will keep an eye out for that. And as much as I want your family and everyone healthy, I also want you working from home to get rid of that commute so you have time for all that writing. So I will hope for still working remotely for you, even though it would be nice if you were able to at least leave the house. And for
Yes.
our viewers, you can find Suvendu's second book, but his first published book, The Crepe Jasmines. It's available all over the world, and you will really love learning about these people that you probably have not met in your life, but very, very eye-opening. Thank you so much for joining us today, and good luck with all of your writing.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.